Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar today, which is on enhancement options for Sage 200. I'm going to just give it another minute. We've got quite a lot of people on the call, but there are others that are due to join and have signed up to join. I'm just going to wait until the top of the hour and then we'll get started, and just bear with me 1 minute. Right, I make it 2 o'clock and let's get started. So yeah, we're going to look at some enhancement options today. My name's John Chinnery and I'm head of Sage 200 at K3. So K3, we're a well-established PLC listed on AIM. We've been a Sage partner since the 1990s. We have over 3,000 customers and over 600 employees. And we work with over 50 different channel partners. And I'm going to be focusing on one of those channel partners very much today. So the partner we're going to be focusing on today is Sicon, and as you can see here, there's some differences between the different Sage 200 versions, and everyone on the call is a Sage 200 professional user. And one of the advantages of being on the Sage 200 professional is the fact that there's the ability to put in further modules and extensions, and that provides a very big advantage. And so we're going to be looking at cash flow manager. We're going to be looking at audit log. We're going to be looking at fixed assets, documents, the enhancement pack, and the intercompany module. So there's an awful lot to get through. I mean, just to give you a bit of background, K3, we're a Sage strategic partner. We're a developer in our own right, and there's a separate webinar where I cover off some of the K3 developments. But at the same time, we don't look to reinvent the wheel. If there's a best of breed out there that's done something particular, for example, around cash flow, then why should we reinvent the wheel? And so we instead partner with Sicon and have done for very many years. And basically the modules are delivered by our consultants. They're tried and tested modules. They're in use in lots of businesses UK wide and UK and Ireland wide. And so yeah, they work and they work well. So Sicon are also a development partner, and then we're a strategic partner with Sicon. We're certainly in the top partners that resell Sicon, and for good reason, because they address business needs and can make your platform, your system more functional, more capable. So it's all about looking at where the gaps lie and how these products can help make your system more functional. I won't be going into any detail today, but some of the other things that Sicon do, they're very large into web apps, and we sell these. I mean, it's things like warehouse management, shop floor data capture, expense management, HR management, CRM. I mean, the list goes on, and web apps is especially in today's sort of cloud world where we want to have web access into things, that a great many of these apps are sort of web front ends that then talk to the Sage system but allow people to interact with it, whether it's through stock, whether it's through expenses, and so on. And there's also a number of verticals that Sicon address that we address through the Sicon software. So areas like manufacturing, construction, professional services, service management with engineers and call outs, that kind of thing, as well as hire management. So I'm not going to be covering any of those today. I'll be covering those in other webinars in the future and have done so in the past. and it's really just to sort of reference them at this point. So I'm going to start looking at Cash Flow Manager. Now, obviously I have got some slides here, but I'm going to be just flipping into my environment and showing you this stuff rather than, you know, showing you a lot of slides. And the thing with Cash Flow Manager sits here within the Sage 200 system. So you have a cash flow forecast. And this cash flow forecast, you can have multiple cash flow sets. So I've got one here called credit control, and I'm forecasting from, it'll default to sort of forecast from this month. But what I'm going to do is, because I've got wonderful demo data that sort of goes back some years, I'm actually going to go back in time and say, back here, I had no cash in my bank, but I had £77,000 due in, and therefore I was going to end the month back in the day with 77,000. So this is a cash flow set. And what we can see is that we've got the ability to drill down into this, and it drills down into sales ledger and says, that's how much you've actually got as debtors, that's how much you've got in order book. But this is order book that was due to close by August 2015. And what I'm actually able to do is just drill down into it and see what that's made up of. And that is made up of that customer and that customer. And I can actually just drill down further still and say, ah, yes, it was for that order there, 5120. And then I can drill down even further still and say, ah, it was actually for a kitchen. And what we're actually able to do is change forecast dates, or we can drag and drop this. So if I said, well, yes, it was due by August, but I'm now going to reforecast it. You can start to reforecast things. So let's say that was going to now be the end of September. It's actually moved itself and moved the commitment and moved the cash, importantly, through to, so my closing balance of cash is no longer 77, it's now 74. And my cash flow only comes through into here. So this is a way of just building up your data, and it also lets you drill down to the orders, or in the case of invoices, it lets you drill down to the invoices. So if we went to the sales ledger, we'd be able to drill down to the invoice in question. We can also so view transaction would drill down like so. And and what it's doing is it's drilling down to the underlying transaction. But these memos here, this is the memos that are used in Cash Flow Manager. So the great thing about this, and the reason that you can use this for cash flow and for credit control, is that you know, sort of chased with Mary, who promised payment by, let's say, the 16th of September. Just from 2015, because that's kind of where we are at in the data. And yeah, you know, adding that in, that now sort of shows me that I've got a memo against it, and I can go back and look at the memo if I wanted to, and there it is. And yeah, so it's just a simple way of working with the data. But what will have happened is, if we went to BIR 003, is all of that data is in your database, so it's all in one place. So if I said, let's look at BIR 003, and we went in and looked at the transaction, that transaction is going to have a memo against it as well, and we can see it's that one there. If we drill down to the memo, there's the chase with Mary, who promised it by September. So very nice way of being able to map out your cash flow. Now, the way it works is that it actually extends the fields. So the promise date that I obtained, that's actually an extra field here called forecast date, and I have one of these within this part of the system, as well as in sales orders, purchase orders, and so on. So and it comes down to the fact that your tax date or your transaction date isn't the date that you're going to see the cash. You know, quite often they're very, very different. And in fact, one of the very neat settings around the system in here is, do I want to use the customer's average time to pay to kind of put in the expected forecast date, or do I want to use their payment terms? So let's say BIRW3 is on 30-day payment terms, but they always pay me late. Do I want to use kind of what their average time to pay is as when am I forecasting the cash, or do I want to stick to the due dates and so there's two ways of looking at it, really, isn't there? And the other thing you can do with cash flow forecast, which is quite nice. So I've showed you where I was looking at it month by month by month, but you can redraw this for week by week by week or day by day by day. So if I run that in day mode, it's taking me 365 days ahead. But there we go, today, tomorrow, and again, I probably need to go back in time to see some data. The demo data I've got is going to look better like this. But what this does is it says, here's all the cash you're expecting in day by day for the coming year. And obviously, as your transactions come through and as people pay their bills and as you get new orders, obviously these numbers are continually changing. But what this gives you is, like, this is wonderful. So for sort of the coming year, I'm never going to need to dip into my overdraft because I've got just this increasing amount of cash flow and positive cash flow, which is fantastic. You're also able, with some of their vertical products, to hook into other things like contract income, like future contract income, in the case of construction, into retentions and applications for payment and so on. And also you can take into account things that are non-trading cash movements. So, let's say you pay your rent in cash, that you can do a cash budget to account for things that are not trade related, and but nevertheless have an impact on cash flow. So there's that's Cash Flow Manager. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is Audit Log. So this Audit Log, it, as the name suggests, it audits and keeps a track of what's going on in the system. So it's one of these products that's in a way fairly subtle. And I do get asked the question, well, is there not a way that Sage does the auditing? Well, the answer is yes, but there are some limitations to what the standard Sage system will track and record. It will, of course, track who enters transactions. It will also track who last updated transactions. But what it doesn't do is, if you get in multiple changes, for example, it's not sort of saying Fred went in on Monday, then Mary went in on Tuesday, and then John went in on Wednesday. What it will do is it'll say Fred created the transaction, John last changed the transaction, and the bit in the middle with Mary, well, that's not the last update. So the audit log will track. It will go down to like every time something has changed. So that's one advantage. The other thing is just the level of detail. The audit change will track and record changes to specific fields. So rather than saying John went in and last changed it, it will say, well, Fred went in and created the supplier, Mary went in and increased the credit limit, and then John went in and added a new contact. Well, it's the fact that Mary did the change of credit limit might be the item in question. It's kind of not just the who's changed it, but what have they changed. And there's two ways that this can work. It can either work silently, and what I mean by that, silent tracking, is that it quietly just sort of sits there and goes, right, Mary's just changed the credit limit, John's just added a contact. And so it will just keep a track of it, and then there's a record of who's changed what, but it won't actually sort of interface. Or if you switch that off, what the non-silent version is that it will pop up a reason. It will say, why are you changing the credit limit? Why are you adding a contact? So it will kind of ask for a reason, and you type in a reason. So if I made sales ledger non-silent, for example, and then went to change this account, and let's say I change the credit limit from 0 to 50,000 and save it. It's at this point that I'm going to get my audit saying, well, why are you changing it from 0 to 50,000? So agreed with Andrew, the commercial director, something like that. So you can put in a reason for change, and then what that does is it keeps a track of all the changes over time. And again, there's a couple of ways that you can run this. That you can report on changes made, audit log changes made over time, who's made the change, when was it, which module was changed, and so on. So there's some reporting around the changes, but also that there's another way of approaching this, which is to say, actually, what I want to, and you can sort of see here where I've got silent tracking is the reason, whereas agreed with Andrews, the comm director, this change that I made here, I'm logged in as K3, by the way, it sort of forced me to put in a reason code. There's also a further third way of running it, whereby person A, so it's all to do with separation of duties, person A will make the change, and then person B signs off the change, and you have audit log reasons, so you can kind of create sort of reasons for change, and then you have this sign off where it's only when the person, with the separation of duties, it's only when the person signs off the change that it actually changes the database. So it will propose the change. Person number one says, I want to change it from 0 to 50,000. And then maybe it's the commercial director that then goes in and says, yes, I'm happy to sign that off, and I'm happy to implement that change, that it then changes. So there's not much more to it than that, but I mean, it's one of those things where I suppose if your auditors particularly feel that you need some increased level of control over your data, and especially for the larger customers, that the audit log can be absolutely essential. So that's audit log. The next one I'm going to show is fixed assets. So we going to sort of look at that next. And I would say what I've done here is I've said key benefits, and I'm comparing it to the one that comes out of the box from Sage. So just in the sort of interest of transparency, there is a fixed assets module within Sage 200 since 2015. There's been this, and this allows you to create fixed assets. You can have a list of fixed assets, and within that you can have a depreciation method. You can have a monthly depreciation between this code and this code, this nominal, and you can do a monthly depreciation. You can dispose of an asset, which basically will be to write it off, and within the dispose, you just select that you're disposing of it, and then it becomes disposed of, and that's about it. It's fairly simplistic. There's the ability to do some basic functionality with it. There's for example the valuation list. There's a couple of reports there's that report and that workspace, and that's it. It's sort of very, very simple. And where I suppose the Sicon fixed assets compares is the level of sophistication. The reporting's a big one, I would say. The sorts of reports that I would say have proven to be very useful in the past is, for example, where you want to do some sort of asset management. So, being able to say, well, where are my assets? What are the location of my assets? What are the who's the insurer of the asset? So it's all that sort of level of detail that sits behind a fixed asset, rather than just the simple, I've got an asset and I'm going to depreciate it. That the sorts of things that you can do around this is, for example, the ability to to link it to maintenance records and then have a maintenance history to have an insurer. In the case of a fixed asset that's a motor vehicle, you can there's a specific tab which then says, okay, because it's a motor vehicle, I'm going to record other information regarding the asset. You've also got the ability to, I'm just looking for cars, which they're in here somewhere, and we've also got the ability to hire assets. So with a fixed asset that is also a hire asset, this is where you can charge out your asset, and there's other things as well around inspections and so on. The ability to forecast the depreciation for the asset as well, the ability to link it between assets and sub-assets, the ability to have negative assets. So it's all of these sorts of areas of sophistication. And also, I mean, this is a big one for a surprising number, is just the methods of depreciation. So under here and under here, these methods where you can have straight line life, straight line percentage, reducing balance, life or percentage, sum of digits, or reducing balance monthly. It's the ability to have things like reducing balance monthly, where you're saying, I want to depreciate it by 25% per annum, but I want that 25% per annum to be posted monthly. I want it to be the sort of 2.08333 recurring that you just can't do, or can't do to the penny with the standard one. So this one with the vehicle, because I've chosen a vehicle, these are all the vehicle related. So for company cars, there's also an accident log. There's also the PPM. So as you can see, there's just an awful lot more that it contains and that it allows you to do. The other thing that's quite interesting is that obviously assets are costing you money in terms of depreciation, and what you can also do with fixed assets is hook it into projects. And what that does is it lets you maintain and manage. So under our settings is that, and there's our different depreciation types, is that we can link it in either to the Sage project accounting or to the Sicon projects module. But all of your depreciation then also, as well as posting to the nominal, will post to a project. So if you've got, again, in the case of hire management, for example, that you've got income coming in for an asset, and then you've got costs going out in terms of depreciation, but also in terms of maintenance, that it's all linked together into a profit center. So that can actually be, you know, again, one of these things that's actually quite powerful, and the ability to just even choose how it posts the depreciation. So do you want a single post? Do you want a post per asset? Again, you can, or one per group of assets. You can do that as well. So yes, coming back to reporting, I was going to show you one of the reports that I would say tends to be is the I've got it. Let's see, put it under here. Yeah, the year-end valuation by asset. So what this is like the statutory reporting, where you've got your brought forward, your additions, your disposals, your carried forward. So that's your brought forward, carried forward of cost. Then you've got your depreciation brought forward, charged for the year, and then carried forward, and then your NBV. And again, it's just, you know, this is sort of, you know, unless you're under small business exemption, this is a standard report that everyone needs to do. So the fact that you get this as a, you know, you just click a button and there it is, massive advantage over the more simple fixed assets module. So it just depends on what your needs are, of course. So that's fixed assets. I'm going to move on because we've still got a lot of ground to cover. Let me get that back up on the screen. So the next one I'm going to show you is documents, and yeah, again, really straightforward module to show you, and there's a couple of aspects to that. So the documents, as the name suggests, I mean, again, in the interest of transparency, you can, of course, store documents against a customer header or a supplier header. So you've got the attachments tabs here, and Sage have introduced something called document storage. So there is now a few other areas. So purchase ledger transactions can be stored in document storage. What you have to do to switch this on and activate this is either use Dropbox or OneDrive from Microsoft, and then effectively what will happen is that you when you click on this, it will take you to a folder, and then within the folder you can drill down to the transaction. So it's yeah, it's you know, they are sort of looking to strengthen the core proposition. But I would say the Sicon documents, and there is another document management product we sell as well. But in the case of the Sicon one, that it's the fact that you've got the transactional level information about documents. So taking purchase invoices, you can see here we've got an extra column that says either do or don't have an attached document. If I do, I can view it. So here, for example, I've got JG56, and there's my invoice there, and I can open it, I can email it. I've got metadata that's been stored against it, so you know it's been uploaded by John Chinnery for that customer, for that supplier rather, on that date, and so on. And you can customize the metadata that you're storing it as well. And that metadata, by the way, you can actually access it from within the documents module. So if you said, I want to find a document, I can't remember which supplier it was, but I do remember it was invoice JG56. Chances are you wouldn't remember it that way, but you sort of get what I mean. That you know, I can sort of say, well, I know it's a supplier invoice, so you can purchase invoice, and let's just say, oh, you know, I'm gonna so either search for an attribute or search for text JG56 and find, and you can do comma separated searches for different things, and there it finds it, you know, easy as that. But if I said, oh, I can't remember even that it was called JG56, it just kind of says, well, here's all the purchase invoices, and you know, here's a graphical list of them, and again, you can sort of browse your way through it, or sort of look for sort of ways to identify it. So if you know that you sort of uploaded it in the last month or something like that, you can say, oh yes, there it is, there we go. It's the one that I did on the 10th of September. And that's quite useful. And also just being able to do things like this, being able to say purchase ledger, transactions with no documents. And this is, again, one of these that once you start using this is just so useful. So let me say, like, here's all the things that haven't been uploaded since the start of this year, and there's a list of them. So for all of these suppliers, I've not got a copy of their invoice against those transactions. You know, and what I can do, by the way, is add them in through this screen here. So add a document invoice, and what you can do is drag and drop it onto there. You can of course scan it. If you've got a scanner, attached scanner, you can scan. Or you can, if you've got an email, you can just drag in the attachment and you know, attach it in like that as well. And there's a few different tools in here as well to be able to link it in and split the PDF, that kind of thing as well. So there's that one for purchase ledger. There's also this one, excuse me, for purchase orders. So these are purchase orders that don't have quotes against them, for example. And these are receipts and dispatches where I haven't got the the documentation that's attached into them. So that's the core part of the documents module. The next thing I'm going to show you is document automation. So this is a sort of an advanced option within the documents, and this is the ability to basically to machine read documents coming in. So I've got a document here. It's this one here, and what it's doing is it's basically machine read it. It's read the word invoice, it's read the word 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But what it's doing is it's sort of waiting for some validation information. So what we can do is we can train it to sort of say, go and look in this area of the page for this piece of information. And then once that's been, and also, by the way, you can pull out, if you're using projects, you can pull out the project reference. If you're using purchase orders, it will pull out the purchase order. If you're buying in quantities of stock items, it will pull out the quantity GRN information. So, you know, I'm being invoiced for 5 widgets, and in the system on purchase order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I've received 5 widgets that I've not been invoiced for. So it will do all of that 3-way matching as well. And then what you do is once you're ready, you can post it through, and then that will post through to the purchase ledger as an invoice, and it will attach itself. That document will attach itself against the transaction. So it's a much quicker way of doing things, and basically you'll have a pile of readies, a pile of needs attention, a pile of ones that have GRN issues. So this is basically where it's failed the 3-way match. You've got the ability to query documents yourself. There's the ability to, this export function is not used, and then the submitted is basically once you've done that, it becomes submitted. Okay, so that's the idea behind the document automation, and where we've put this into customers. I mean, it's made things a huge amount faster. And what happens is, against, so Atlas is my supplier, against the supplier, what it's doing is it's looking at all the pieces of information, and what you've also got is under here, you can sort of say, these are the settings I want you to use. You know, I want you to pull out the narrative, and I want that narrative to go into my the narrative of my purchase invoice. I want to pull out, like here, for example, I know them as Atlas Ranges Limited, but their paperwork only says Atlas Ranges. So I've actually put fine tuning, you know, look for the name Atlas Ranges, because, you know, sometimes computers are a bit thick, and you've got to tell them, you know, just look at this part of the name, which is what I'm doing there. And, you know, I'm able to override any of the data here under the fine tuning, but I'm still leaving them as that. You know, I haven't changed their name. I've just used that under the fine tuning to kind of look for some additional information. So that's kind of how that works. And that's another option within the documents module. And next thing I'm going to show you is the enhancement pack. So we're just over halfway on the time. I could spend an hour just looking at even one of these 6 things I'm showing today. So we're not going to get through it all. But what you've got within the enhancement pack is 90 over 90 add-ons, and they're broken out into, you know, things that exist in particular modules. So you know, some of this stuff's not going to be relevant for everyone, but I'm going to start with the perhaps some of the more popular ones first, and the ones that I personally just have put into customers over the years and have made a substantial difference. This one I really like, nominal reconciliation. So what this allows me to do is, against any one of my nominal accounts, is that I can basically say, you know, that's going to be a control account, so therefore I want to kind of keep an audit or a reconciliation. And the classic one, I would say, I mean, if nothing else, is your suspense account. I've got a balance of 18,000 of suspense. Great, okay. So what I need to do is, obviously I need to get rid of that suspense, and so just put that in here as the so it's my ADM. And what I've got is, I I might have actually. Let's just it's demo data. Let's go for this one instead. I've got this one here where I've got various items that are sitting on account. Yeah, that credits and debits, and that basically what this allows me to do is match, just in the same way as you would with your bank rec, or it's basically just match off the credits and the debits against one another, and I can do a full reconciliation or a partial reconciliation. You can do either, and you've also got the ability to from within my transaction inquiry, this extended one that then says, well, here's all the things that you have and haven't reconciled, and that's quite nice as well. That it will, but you can use this for various things. I mean, VAT liabilities, another line, or potentially for wages control, and the one any control that it will allow that to happen. And just there we go, just a short disconnection there from the server. So hopefully that's gonna the internet's gonna keep working for us this afternoon. And if there are any questions, I didn't say, but over on the right hand side you've got a Q&A panel, so do feel free to ask any questions if you have any, and I'll be pleased to answer them either during the session or afterwards. So we're going to look at some of the other common add-ons. Let's do that next, and let me just get back to my server. That's right, bear with me. And there we go, I'm back. And yeah, so that's the nominal reconciliation. The post button is a way of doing separation of duties to allow person A to enter journals, person B signs them off and posts them. So person A can put them on hold but can't post them, and that could be quite nice. Under the price book, you've got things like the ability to update price books by a percentage. So if I said I want to update the standard price book, for example, so at the moment I'm selling gully turret assemblies for £500. 3% increase would drop that up to 515. So it's a way of being able to push through price increases on price book, for example. That's and then discounts by a percentage. Similarly, if you've got discounts in the price book, so here, for example, I've got an accessories, and once again 3%, is that I'm able to pull through an increase on it's either done at product group or stock item. I think my WWE, there we go. Yeah, so here I'm currently selling that item at £5. New price would be there's currently a £5 discount. That would increase it to a £5.15 discount going forwards. So, and then that would update all of those all at once. So there's those sorts of things there under pricing. You've also got things like the pop-up notes. So some of these, by the way, are sort of extra screens. So like here, for example, in the nominal ledger, there's extra screens. But then there's other things where it's sort of built into the main menu. So for example, if we went to our stock items, and I looked at a stock item that, and under here for blenders, for example, if I went in and edited it, the enhancement pack gives me additional options that actually just sit against each stock item. So here, for example, I've got pop-up notes, and here I've got a note that's going to pop up. So you've got stop pop-up notes, pop pop-up notes, no pun intended, and these work in addition to the ones that come from standard Sage. So in standard Sage, if I had a let's say I was going to quickly just do a sales order that, and if I'm selling some blenders to somebody, that I've got the ability to have a pop-up based upon who the customer is, which is so there's a Sicon one that looks like that. There's also a Sage one that looks like that. So the customer one from the Sicon enhancement pack's less relevant, but I suppose the one that the Sicon enhancement pack does add in is the fact that you've got the pop-up notes. So that we've got some extra notes about this product that can be sort of sales prompts or things like that, or that's what that's intended for. This is an enhancement pack as well. The fact that what I'm able to do is upload customer stock codes, and then having established customer stock codes, because if a customer's saying, oh, I'd like to buy another ESP 1000, and it's like, well, okay, that's what I call the ACS Espresso. That basically is a way of like doing a lookup against, and what it's doing is it's looking at Abbey Retail and saying, here's all the products for Abbey Retail. And that in turn is something that sits against the customer account. So if we went to look at Abbey Retail, and Abbey Retail's there, that what we're able to do is maintain all of the customer stock codes in here against the so that was the pop-up notes there, and so you're able to maintain the customer codes as well, and they're maintained within this part of the enhancement pack where you've got the customer code somewhere in this list anyway. There's a few other things as well that can be useful. The copy order to return will allow you to pull through an order and create a return, which will copy through all the discounts and so on. There is the ability to do that from within this top button menu, but this one's potentially a bit more flexible, that it lets you just do it from any past one and then create the return reasons as well. So it's a way of being able to maintain reasons so that, let's say, price problem, change their mind, that kind of thing. That what that means is that you can then, on a return, you can then manage the sales return reason for the return, which is quite nice. So it's this list here, reason for credit. Again, just one of those things that you end up having to use an analysis code for if you don't have it. So that's an example of that. The currency exchange rates applied. I mean, what that allows you to do is from within Accounting System Manager that you've got your currencies and exchange rates. That if I made a change to the currencies and exchange rates, so let's say against the euro, for example, against the euro, which we maintain here. Let's say I was going to change that to be, I think today's rate's 0.885, I think, and let's just change that to be the 30th September 2021. Is that what that would do is it pops up a screen that then says, well, do you want to apply that 0.885 rate to all your open orders which is what we're seeing now. So what that would do is it would apply that exchange rate across any open transactions, and that's the enhancement pack. You've also got other littler things, but nevertheless jolly useful against the sales ledger or purchase ledger account. if I went in and looked at Abbey Retail, and here under the second reference, I can see it's sales order 5311. So I could, I could come in here and go 5311 and then sort of view the order and do it that way. But what this lets you do is just from within here, view invoice items, and it's taking you down into the product. And from there, you can actually just click into the sales order that ultimately was posted through as invoice 5397. So in fact, if we click there, we can round robin it and say, yeah, that was posted as 5397. And it's just a way of sort of being able to drill down from the sales ledger and purchase ledger to the underlying transactions. Obviously, that invoice items will work for SOP source, but if it's view invoice items sales, it'll say, well, there's nothing for me to drill through to. But that's part of the enhancement pack. There's similarly under the nominal transaction inquiry, a button to drill down to the underlying transaction there as well. So if I went to a sales nominal here, again, these are sort of, if I view the source of that nominal transaction, then it takes me down to the underlying transaction behind it. And that again is, and in fact, I can from there drill down to the underlying invoice item there, look. So that thing there that posted to my sales default on that date came from sales order 5183, which is fantastic because you can work it out without the enhancement pack, but it just makes it so much more convenient, which is great. So that's that one. There are other things as well. I mean, if I go into, let's have a look at, show you some, just go back into enhancement pack, which is here. So just talking you through some of the other things it can do. There's so much to show you. It's difficult to kind of put it all into a very neat potted. The second reference on orders is an extra field where you can store an extra reference piece of information. The pop-up prompt we saw a moment ago, the currency exchange rates we saw a moment ago. Display URN this was a very particular requirement where somebody said, I want to write down the URN when I've entered an invoice. So by ticking that, it pops up on screen. The extended VAT, I've used this for a customer that was using partial exemption of VAT that allowed them to be able to say, so on a sales invoice, or sorry, on a purchase invoice, where you've got the tax split and then you've got the nominal split, there's no way of saying this tax split relates to the nominal split in this way. Whereas what this extended VAT analysis does is it says, okay, this posting on this line to this nominal code, what tax status is that? So actually, yes, you can. So for partially exempt customers, what they're able to say is like this portion was VAT exempt, this portion was standard VAT, so that you can then report on it. And certainly where you've got to sort of then report a balancing liability or credit to the HMRC, it's a huge time saver to have this bit by here. The locate is a way of introducing postcode lookups in Sage 200. So this will work within the sales order screen. It will work in various different screens, and it basically just gives you the ability to do a lookup. It looks like this. So if I put in this postcode, it comes back and says, here's all of the businesses at that address, and there's our friend Sicon at that address in the IP Ipswich postcode. And that's the way locate works. You have to pay for a locate subscription, but it basically lets you set that up, and obviously it will populate the sales order delivery address, or it will populate the wherever you've got an address in the system, you can use it to populate the address. So for sales order entry, that's a huge win for some customers. User configured product groups. What that can be used for is this thing here, is that, so I'm logged in as K3, I've got access to accessories product group only. What that means is if I'm raising a sales order, I'm only seeing the accessories within the product group. So when I add items, I can't sell everything. I can only sell these things, which are my accessory products. And that's basically what that does. If I switch that off, then it would allow me to pick any item from my stock system. The warehouse, where is it gone? The ability to post according to warehouse, I was going to say, that's quite a nice one as well, where you can relate a warehouse location to a cost center, to a profit center, and therefore post it to the relevant nominal code. So again, it's a way of you can manually do it without the enhancement pack, but it just makes the whole thing more foolproof, shall we say. The ability to generate reversal journals on the transaction inquiry. What that will do is you can push a button, and then whatever you're seeing on the transaction inquiry, it will let you reverse it back off. So under here, if I wanted to reverse a transaction, it's because I've archived everything. I'm not seeing anything there under that. That's why that reconciliation screen wasn't working. But here, if I wanted to, I could reverse that back off, and it would basically post itself back to the opposite of these. So it would debit freehold property and it would credit depreciation in this example. That's what that one does. I'm going to show you the stock. I'm going to show you the stock ones next. So under stock control, my favorite is the stock valuation. And the reason is that if I want to do a comparison between the stock I had at the start of the year and the stock that I have today, and let's say I was going to look at the factory, what this will do is it works through my database. Obviously, it has a little think, which is this progress bar here. It will list out all the stock items that are in the factory, and it will say, here's all the items that you had more of at the start of the year. So this is what I have now. I have 2 of them. Back then, at the start of the year, I had 4 of them, and the value of them was 601. The value now is 300. And what you can do is, if you click on these and drill down, it'll basically say the reason you've got 2 today and not 4 is because on that date and on that date, 1 item was sold there and 1 item was sold there. And if I wanted to, I could click in on those and drill down to the underlying transaction sitting behind that as well. So this is quite nice because it just gives you that view of why your stock valuation has changed over time. And especially if you're looking to reconcile or look at where you've got slow moving stock and so on, being able to sort of say, well, you know, now today I've got £84,000 of stock. Back then I had 94, so I've got £10,000 less stock today than I did before. And I'm basically looking at all of my green arrows for the reasons why I've dropped 10,000. Okay, so that's the stock valuation. There's other things like the ability to do stock updates, stock item updates, so update stock items, the ability to do rapid stock level maintenance. So if I said I want to change stock levels at the factory, I can just select the factory and then the item, and there's my minimum maximum reorder levels, and I can do changes through that way. I can do stock location wizard as well. So this is sort of saying I want to add this location to, let's again say the factory, and if I said I want to add a new location, so I'm going to add B1 to the factory. What that will do is it'll look for every stock item that I sell at the factory, so 754, and yeah, you can select and unselect. But what that will do is it will sort of allow me to have location B1 against every one of these stock items. So I just go in there, add, and it'll just work its way through the database, adding in location B1 to every single one of those stock items, which, to be fair, if you were trying to do that manually, you'd spend all afternoon doing that. So that's a really nice one. And by the way, the fact that you can do the remove from within here as well, that's again, you know, it won't let you remove things that aren't removable. In other words, if you've got stock in that bin, you won't be able to delete the bin. But the idea is that, you know, generally the idea is that you know, having added that item in, that what you're then able to do is process it and do make any changes to it. So you know, taking I'm just trying to look for the it was, I'm sure the items 2, 4. It's because I got the filter switched on. Sorry, I was completely, it baffled me then why I wasn't seeing the item I was looking for. This one here I noticed was in the factory, for example. So now I've got all these locations, including location B1, as sort of, this is where that item could be held. So that's another example of the enhancement pack. Under purchase order processing, this is quite a big one, the ability to maintain prices, price breaks. So what this allows me to do is maintain a price list for AB cookers along with price breaks. So let's say I wanted to maintain prices for that item there. You know, if I buy one item, it's 400. If I buy more than 10 items, the price drops to 350. So this is like the customer price book, but it's the ability to do this against a supplier record. And what will happen is purchase order processing will apply the relevant buying price depending upon what quantity you're buying of that item. So if I'm in the market for over 100 turrets, then I can get them at a £300 price point. Obviously, those are just prices. And by the way, you can get those prices agreed with your supplier and then import in the data. And there's an import file to do that data in, which looks like that. I'm really almost out of time, so it's always the way. As I say, I can spend probably much more than 1 hour. Just whilst we're here, there's a lot of other imports that are possible through the enhancement pack as well. So that's the enhancement pack. The last module I was going to show you was the intercompany module. We've got 4 minutes left on the clock. So I'm just going to talk about this rather than show it to you. The sorts of use cases you'd use this for is, number one, journals that go against multiple companies. So it will do the intercompany journal, the multi-company journal, where you can either just do sequential posts to company B, C, D, and so on, or you can do a split post. It will also allow you to do multiple, so let's say it's an invoice that's come into head office but needs to be attributed across the child companies, you can do that as well. Same with payments, same with receipts. It also works where you've got stock held in multiple companies and you want to transfer stock between those companies, you know, so company B is going to use some of company A's stock, but it's going to obviously pay company A for the stock. You've got that sort of thing, that sort of scenario where it's stock value, but separately you've got intercompany trading. So a number of our customers have this where company A is selling to company B, and effectively the purchase order in company A becomes the sales order in company B. So it will do all of that automatically as well. So raising the PO, you obviously need to have the same stock codes in both companies for it to work, but it will allow you to do a back-to-back sales order created out of a purchase order, and equally when you dispatch the goods from company A, it will receipt them to company B. It does all of that as well. There's other things that it does as well, but it's everything to do with intercompany. So rather than having to do things in company A, then log out, log into company B, do the other side of the transaction. Intercompany just lets you do it all in company A, where you're saying this is what's posted into company B or C or D and so on. So that's the end of it, really. We're sort of at 1 minute to 3. As I say, I'd be very happy to answer any questions anyone has. I'm just looking on the question interface. Yeah, I've got a question about the audit log. Would we be able to see any changes to supplier bank details? Yes, 100%. 100%. That's one of the biggest areas. In fact, there is a website that contains a list of every field that's tracked, which is quite a useful one to look at in this regard. So if you went to sicon.co.uk, if you went to audit log, so additions, financials, audit log, and then under the help and user guide, there's a appendices, spelt wrong, but anyway, appendices audited fields, and there's a list of all the fields that it covers. And yeah, bank is or bank in the sense of those are your cash books, but supplier bank is definitely in that list, in and amongst all of that. So yeah, absolutely, that's a very good way of separation of duties, and that combined with the sign off is also the the other way of so the ledger sign off, where you can have person A does the change, person B signs off the change, then it sort of gives you the separation of duties that way as well, as another option. And it also will store, here's the old value, here's the new value, so this is what it used to be, this is what it is now. So there's, if you are going to sort of say, well, actually I decline the change, that you can actually take it back to the old value as well. So that's yeah, that's there's a couple of ways that you can structure the audit log, and yeah, hopefully that answers the question. So thank you ever so much for all your time. My email address is on screen if there's any other questions that come up, or of course do speak to your account manager, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon. Take care. Bye for now.